Welcome to the Getting Better Show. We are at NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters Convention here in Grapevine, Texas. And I have with me today Mark Negley. And we are going to talk about Survive, Alive, and Thrive, his book on grieving. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ann. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Are you enjoying NRB?
You know, NRB is just now 1 or 2 days in, and it's been wonderful. A lot of great speakers, inspiring content, folks that we're meeting that are of the same mind to try to leverage our relationship and love for God in ways that change the world.
Yes, I've had a lot of fun. Dennis Quaid was last night.
He was wonderful.
He was wonderful. And he sang.
He's previewing a little bit of the upcoming Reagan movie next year, which is going to be really exciting. One of my personal heroes, Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan, he did a very good job in those previews. It looks dramatic, which I guess it probably was being president. But that was really fun. Who else have you enjoyed so far since you've been here?
Well, you know, we've met with a number of people from an interviewing perspective that have been really exploring the different categories of faith, right? Eric Metaxas.
You saw him. I saw him at lunch.
Yeah, and Eric is an old personal friend of mine. So, yeah, I've known him for over 20 years. And the fact is that I got involved in men's ministry in the year 2000, shortly after coming to know Christ, which for me was later in life in 1999. And I got involved in an organization that was that Eric was a part of before he was well known. At the time, his best, most well-known credentials were Veggie Tales and writing a book called Squanto.
So he worked on Veggie Tales.
He did. That's where he got his start. He was a writer behind the scenes.
Oh, that's so wonderful. I did not know that. Hey, my kids, Veggie Tales. Yes. Yeah, and what was the other one?
Squanto is the book about the Indian who had been through slavery and returned by missionaries and had helped the.
That was animated, right? A Thanksgiving animated thing with Squanto.
Eventually, it was, but he wrote a little cartoon book that at the time my son was 3 years old in the year 2000, and trying to help our friend. Got a little signed copy. So it was nice to catch up with him. He and I speak every now and then, but there's another example of good friends.
That's amazing what you don't know about a political pundit, right? Like he's a political talk show kind of guy, and yet he has this incredible background.
That's right. Well, humor, you know, is a great way to cut through tough topics. So that's what we'll do.
So you have humor then, because your topic about grieving, and you're going to help us today know ways to help our friends or family members, people people who are grieving, some things that you can do and say. But tell us a little bit about where you got to write this book.
Well, you know, my history is one that contains a lot of brokenness, and I've also had some wonderful blessings and things that have changed my life in ways that I'm so grateful. But it's a tapestry of experiences that is not unique to the human experience, right? I mean, as people know out there, Job is the oldest book in the Bible. And obviously, the suffering he's gone through and went through is well chronicled. So suffering is not unique and a new challenge for the human experience, right? This has been around since, we were created.
Right.
And it's a question is, what do we do when we're going through tough stuff? And in my case, the list includes raising a child with special needs. And for folks out there that have struggled with raising a child who has learning differences on the autistic spectrum or in many different ways, you can only know how hard that is if you've been through it yourself. I've had a phone call in the middle of a business meeting from an ambulance that a paramedic was calling to tell me that my wife, Victoria, had been in a high-speed car accident and was being rushed to the hospital and didn't know if she was going to live, but I needed to get to the hospital right away. And nothing can prepare you for that. I've sat across from the doctor who looks you in the eye and says, you have cancer, and we need to make some decisions about that right away. And we're not sure if it's metastasized. We don't think it will kill you, but we have to. And when you hear those words, it immediately changes your life. It's a before and after. My wife went through severe depression and mental health challenges following her car accident, from neurological and other fallout from her accident, which she did survive. So I've spent years supporting her and other family members who are struggling with depression. And in my wife's case, she had a psychological break, unable to differentiate between paranoid delusions and reality. So we had to work through that process. And then, sadly, 4 years after that, she went off her medication and took her life. So, 2016, I came home. At the time, my son was 18 years old, to discover that she had committed suicide. And after being healed of cancer and then experiencing the loss of my wife in such a dramatic way, you can be on top of the mountain and you can be in the valley on your knees. The question is, what do you do? How do you respond? And the only way I could understand that is to lean into God and trust Him and work my way through it. And that led me to this process where now it's 5 years from the date of my wife's death. And I'm living a joy-filled life. And it didn't seem possible 5 years ago.
And 5 years is not very long, really, in the span of things, to be able to heal.
Well, you know,
when it's grieving.
And you know, sometimes it's a lifetime. And, you know, there's the book that I've written, Survival, Act, Thrive, is really about understanding what grieving is like from an experiential side, right? Not from a clinical perspective of the well-known 5 stages of grief that were written 50 years ago were actually never written for those of us that have survived loss. It was written for people that had been diagnosed with terminal illness and had been told they had 3 to 6 months to live.
Is that where they came up with those stages?
That's it. And there's singular stages, right? Denial, anger, and progressive singular check the box.
Right.
That's just not how it works, right? You just don't progress through grief that way. So for the last 5 years, I've been leading grief groups. I've been meeting with folks that have experienced or are currently experiencing loss themselves. I'm trying to better understand where they are, where they were, and how they have progressed. It's akin to the idea of when you go into a big mall and there's thousands of stores and you don't know where you're going and you're looking for that kiosk that says you are here. So we're providing some insight that includes many different emotional benchmarks, hallmarks, and responses that allows you to say, here's where I am. And now from here, what are the progressive steps, ideas, and suggestions to proactively pursue healing so that you can find yourself with hope and eventually living a life that includes joy despite the loss that's been along your journey, right?
Yes, and you know, it's so interesting how you go through a phase of this kind of process of, I don't know if you did, you know, but my kids with the loss of their dad, they got pretty angry.
Sure.
And so now it's so crazy that they're just on the opposite side of that now. They've come through that, and you know, being able to know what to do with all of those. I mean, there's so many emotions. That's what's so crazy about the stages, right? And people are going in and out of, if you follow just those stages, I tell people, you know, they're not in order.
No.
I mean, you know, shock is first and acceptance is last.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know why they call it denial. All I know is in the middle of all that, you go in and out and in and out, and your body takes breaks because it has to survive. And so, and it's a long, gentle process to help your body go through it, your mind and your body. Doctors separate the brain and the body from the body.
Sure.
And so it's such a, you know, and I just have to tell people it's waves. It comes in waves.
Mm-hmm.
The anger is going to come, and the sadness, it's going to come in waves and go back out, come in waves and go back out. But I would love to hear what you've come up with and what you're doing with all these people, because you've been doing it for 5 years. And would you share them?
Well, yeah, I'd be happy to. I think what I love about what you just said is the different waves of emotions. And so the model in Survival Life Thrive is very different. It is what I refer to as atomic. There's only three stages. Survive, which is the time immediately following your loss, when you're literally just trying to get from one moment to the next, maybe one day to the next, right?